Greetings! I'm sure you all know the story of an adventurer set on defeating the Devil King, gaining party members throughout their travels, becoming fabled in stories, achieving the wholehearted respect of everyone throughout the land, cementing themselves as heroes. A story to be remembered for all of history as we know it. Only this time in the most backwards way possible. A then 17-year-old Kazuma Sato, your average shut-in NEET, would perish upon heroically saving a girl's life from an oncoming vehicle, sending him to the afterlife to be adjudicated by an arbiter, a goddess. Aqua, the said goddess, then unceremoniously unveiled Kazuma's true cause of death, an embarrassing perishment by shock, as the vehicle he had saved her from was not going to hit her at all, and even if it did, it was going slow as hell. Mockingly, on top of already cackling to herself with the goddess in front of him, reveal his family had laughed at his death as well. Truly, a pointless and quite pitiful existence and loss of life. In lieu of this, would Aqua allow Kazuma a reincarnation into an unnamed fantasy-like world with the assistance of an overpowered ability, weapon, or anything else he'd like to bring with him? Instead, out of annoyance at the now lackadaisical, uncaring, and quite rude goddess, Kazuma chose not a magic sword, not a one-shot kill ability, but Aqua herself. And surprisingly, that actually worked. Only now, 1. Aqua was stuck here with Kazuma until the Devil King was defeated, having no way of getting back to the heavenly realm. 2. Aqua's godly powers were mostly unusable, and 3. They were straight broke. So to make some money, Kazuma signed them up at the nearby Adventurers Guild, showcasing Kazuma's stupidly average stats besides his decent intelligence and unbelievably high luck. As for Aqua, just take everything I said for Kazuma and reverse it. Low intelligence, terrible luck, but amazing stats otherwise. Right off the bat, she was able to choose Archpriest, one of the advanced classes, the most powerful in Konosuba. Even still, they were broke. Only here was Kazuma faced with an all-too-realistic wake-up call that most of the nearby weaker monsters had long since been defeated, so they had no other choice but to take on some part-time jobs, all the while living with the horses in an unsanitary stable. The unlikely duo soon took their chance when the giant toad's mating season came around to make some quick cash. But after barely surviving 2 of them, they posted a recruitment advertisement on the guild's notice board, almost immediately attracting the archwizard Megumin, a member of the Crimson Demon clan specializing in one type of magic and one alone: explosion. Their notoriety came from their stark red eyes that glow when they're excited, as well as their ridiculous surplus of magical power. But who was this girl? Where'd she come from? And why on earth would she want to party with these losers? Well, let's head into Spinoff territory and find out. In her childhood, Megumin would encounter a fearsome enemy and would thankfully be saved by a powerful archwizard with the use of a single, all-powerful blown away by the spell's sheer, unparalleled destructive power, the girl's fate was eternally altered, and she set her mind on one thing and one thing alone: to walk the lonely path of explosions and one day wield a spell of equal power. Once she learned this spell, Megumin's goal would be to seek out and ask this mysterious woman what she thought of her explosion. Also, I should note, Megumin actually broke this woman out of a magic seal, and when she awakened her, it also awakened the monster she was saved from, which the crimson-haired woman noted as her other half. Much later, Megumin's parents would sell a deceivingly cursed magic item to a different red-haired woman by the name of Arnis. That'll be important later. In school, Megumin would be laughed at for attempting to learn explosion, but would actually be supported by one person, that being Yunyun, beginning their rivalry and friendship, even if Megumin didn't want to admit it yet. Returning home from school one day, Megumin would discover her sister Komeko had captured a Chomsuke. That's a cat, in large quotations. In reality, this was a being known as the Dark God, Wolbach. The reason Komeko had it is because she befriended the feline after assisting a demon by the name of Host, who Komeko actually ended up befriending as well, and helped him release Wolbach unintentionally. The demon was surprisingly pretty chill and would agree to become Komeko's familiar in the future. Some days afterward, following a heart-to-heart between Megumin and Yunyun, would the village be attacked by a horde of demons to retrieve Wolbach, putting a lone Komeko in harm's way. To defeat the demons, Megumin was tasked with learning a new spell before explosion, but hesitated as that would be going against her entire life's goal. Being the great friend she is, Yunyun stepped in and learned intermediate magic so Megumin wouldn't have to. That didn't mean the onslaught was over though. The demons were beginning to surround the girls and Yunyun was out of magical power. Just then, as she was yet again about to begrudgingly learn some intermediate spells to save themselves, Megumin recalled that she actually acquired one more skill point earlier that day. With the sacrifice of an innocent Duxian, she was able to pursue her desired spell after all, at last unleashing the most powerful spell known to man. After that, our duo had officially graduated from the Red Prison, but a teleport out of town would cost 300,000 eras, so Megumin stayed behind to make some money before beginning her journey. One night, after job hunting, there was a visitor by the name of Arnis, a demon, to reclaim her master Wolbach. She kindly offered to pay for her trip out of here if she could have her lord back, but Chomsuke didn't seem intent on going. Anyway, the woman didn't actually end up getting Chomsuke because of the cursed magic item she'd been sold by Megumin's parents, causing her to accidentally leave the money there. With that scam being decided, Megumin headed off to Arkanretsia, leaving the Dark Lord behind in Union's care and beginning her adventure. But now, without a party to speak of and close to no money left, she was stuck in place yet again. Luckily, maybe the wrong word to use here, she ran into Cecily from the Axis Order, who covered her meal expenses, and in return, Megumin assisted in recruiting new members of their church. Next, they figured out someone was attempting to ruin their water supply with a strange purple slime mix, and upon clearing Father Zessa's name, the Archpriest would push back Arnis, who would once again return for her master. Oh, by the way, Union came back with Chomsuke, that's why she's here. I forgot to include that. Crap. As thanks for teaching Zesta some devilishly devious recruitment methods, he would gift Megumin the coach fee for Axel, where she and Union could level up properly from the town of beginnings. En route, they'd be attacked by a good few groups of enemies sent by Arnis to exhaust their bodyguard's magical power, eventually resulting in the demon herself emerging for the final time. With a surely deadly battle with the demon, it all seemed far too hopeless, where she began praying for anyone to help, even the goddess of water. In that moment, Aqua and Kazuma would arrive at Axel, creating a blinding spotlight above the nearby town. With a combination of that coincidence and Chomsuke biting Arnis, a small window of distraction was created, and Megumin wasted no time charging up her signature move to slay the demon. Honestly, you have to feel bad for Arnis. She really did nothing wrong here. She was sold a magic item with a curse of binding that did nothing but bring her anguish. She just wanted her master back, which she not only did not receive, but also had her cash stolen and was murdered shortly after by some beginner adventurer. Anyway, the duo at last arrived at Axel, but their dreams of joining a fun adventuring party were left unsatisfied, with Megumin being rejected after every first outing ad nauseum because of her uselessness, and Union being either too shy or awkward or only garnering the attention of creeps. It's safe to say it wasn't going well for them. But with no actual luck and on the verge of homelessness, the rivals agreed on a temporary truce to team up and earn some Eris. Only bad timing had struck yet again because Host had followed Wolbach to Axel and was also seeking the Lord. Keep in mind, this demon was as powerful as a Devil King general and even defeated Mitsurugi. They would later meet this Host in the woods, who would request a deal be made for the Dark Lord, and in return nobody gets hurt, not even the villagers or the village itself. So they decided to think on that and return home. They would spend the night planning out a way to take down Host, and it's here where Union would point out how much Megumin's changed, and how she's a lot less selfish than she'd been a year ago. I haven't been mentioning it too much, but Union's absolutely right. At the start of the spin-off, Megumin was straight up unlikable, but through her friend's help, she's gotten far more humble. The next day, over the course of a well-fought battle, the team of Megumin and Union, with the assistance of her new party, defeated Host with a finishing blow of what else but before his death, Host would exclaim that this would be one life wasted, implying he has at least one more life in him like Vanir. He also stated that if he doesn't turn things around, he'll actually end up becoming Komeko's familiar. After that, Union would disembark on a journey of her own to master advanced magic, so that she could one day return and defeat her rival, with Megumin agreeing to duel her when she does. KONOSUBA! Finally, Megumin noticed a recruitment posted by a certain archpriest and approached the two bickering novices, where she was welcomed onto the team. Only, as always, Megumin proved to be less helpful than she was a hindrance. Kazuma, after a toad-slaying quest, could be seen carrying back the now slimy magic caster on his back, and was ready to kick her out of the party before the clearly desperate Megumin emotionally blackmailed her way into permanent residence in the group. Speaking of new party members, their recruitment notice happened to attract a Crusader, yet another advanced class, in the form of a female knight known by the name of Darkness. The all-too kinky knight would be rejected by Kazuma, only to entice her more. Anyway, before rejecting the Crusader once more, the flying cabbages began attacking. They dealt with those, and then after a final retry from Darkness, the rest of the party openly accepted her. Aside from a begrudging Kazuma, of course. Anyway, there was yet another lull in the monster attacks near Axel, so a good few weeks passed in peace. Megumin still needed to exhaust her magic daily though, so Kazuma would carry her back after she exploded a nearby abandoned castle, day after day after day after day after... I think you get it. This would lead to the annoyance of Verdia, one of the Devil King's generals who'd been taking residence in that very castle. He would appear at Axel's gate, announcing the two had been directly assaulting one of the highest ranks in the Devil King's army. Sacrificing herself so Megumin wasn't cursed, well, let's just say that's what it was, Darkness attained it in her stead and would now be sentenced to death in 7 days. With his message delivered, Verdia left them with a challenge to battle through the castle. castle. If they proved their worth and made it to the end, he promised to lift their curse. After that, Kazuma and Megumin decided it was best to stop firing at the castle, so they agreed to stop. Shortly after he disappeared, Aqua pulled a sacred break spell out of her ass, and to everyone's surprise, or rather disappointment, she destroyed Verdia's curse, creating no point in venturing into an enemy general's castle. In the days following, somehow, Aqua managed to attain yet another deep debt at the guild. Probably from too much partying, and so the crew took on their next quest. This one being to purify a nearby crocodile-infested lake. One traumatized Aqua later, and she had successfully done it, only was now too broken to think properly. Arriving back at Axel, a dude named Mitsurugi Kyoya, the dude I mentioned earlier, who Aqua had isekai'd here, found her and assumed the worst, and attempted to free her from the cage. With Kyoya blatantly reminding her she's a goddess, Aqua perked right back up. Also, he learned here that she'd been sleeping in the stables, and upon this new knowledge being brought into play, decided that that was unacceptable, so he challenged Kazuma to a duel for custody over Aqua. Maybe custody isn't the right word, but who cares. Kazuma nonchalantly agreed, quickly stole his cursed sword, bonked him on the head, knocked him out, and soon sold it to the first buyer he could. And that was that. Anyway, later on, Megumin and Darkness were confused why Kazuma was calling Aqua a goddess, so they came clean right here and now, but they didn't believe her. And the conversation didn't have time to continue because Aqua's group was now being single-handedly called out to the front gate by Verdia himself. The Dulahan claimed they hadn't actually stopped firing explosions at all, and was genuinely disheartened that they hadn't embarked on his challenge. Turns out behind his back, Megumin had been exploding the castle with Aqua. Anyway, they managed to figure out his weakness was water, so Aqua summoned a flood to eliminate Verdia altogether, rewarding themselves a hefty 300 million Eris at the guild. Only the flood severely damaged the town's walls, costing them 340 million Eris, putting him back 40 million in debt. Then winter struck. To stay afloat, they decided to hunt some snow sprites, garnering them 100,000 Eris per. They're easy enough to defeat, but the reason their bounty is so high is because these snow sprites have a master. Enter the Winter Shogun. An attempt at an apology to the Shogun was made, but in vain it was. The enemy's sword swung down, beheading Kazuma. No, I'm not lying. Kazuma actually died here. During this time with Eris, it finally dawned on him he was truly enjoying his life around Axel with his idiotic friends. Suddenly, he began unexpectedly crying, a rare instance of genuine sadness from the NEET. Again, luckily for him, he has a literal goddess as his party member who denied Eris of her duty yet again and yanked Kazuma back to this world.
Hey, I'm cool with pads.
Making it through the winter at last, Kazuma decided he'd get another spell that could actually deal some damage. And who else to ask but Wiz the Lich. She owns a magic item shop in Axel, so they decided to pay her a visit. And this is where Kazuma learned Drain Touch. They also learned here that she was one of the 8 Devil King's generals. Or I guess 7 now, as she's simply assisting them in keeping the magical barrier up, and that's it. After that, a man entered into the shop, requesting a job for our Lich. That job being to exorcise the abundance of spirits who'd taken up residence inside of a former aristocrat's villa. Wiz handed the task to Kazuma's group with a huge bonus upon completion, their new home. They also figured out the spirits congregating inside the mansion was because of none other than our favorite goddess, who created a purifying magic circle in a graveyard when they first met Wiz, just so they didn't have to keep returning to the graveyard, forcing the spirits out and into the nearby vacant villa. Also, after the job was done, Kazuma actually ended up taking care of the gravestones for one of the spirits that exorcised, the original girl who'd been haunting the mansion in the first place, whom they finally set free and let rest in peace. With a rent-free home acquired, I think, they'd finally achieved their goal of a proper roof above their heads. Next, Kazuma found a succubus bar that offers a service to alter your dreams and do anything you desire. So, of course, our protagonist signed the hell up, where he anticipated to sleep the entire day, where he eventually assumed he was asleep, but actually wasn't. Nearly banged Darkness, realized what was going on, and vouched for and saved the succubus Aqua had trapped and apprehended. Next up, all of a sudden, the mobile fortress destroyer was rapidly approaching Axel. What that is a giant mechanical spider-like fortress. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory, I guess. With the power of friendship, they annihilated it, causing it to enter the self-destruct mode. But they had some time still, so they investigated the mechanical construct. Inside, they found the corpse and diary of its pilot who made this abomination, where they learned he accidentally forced it out of control with him inside, torching the kingdom and country it once belonged to ash, erasing its name from history. Mostly. So that it didn't destroy Axel and cause any more genocide, Wiz teleported the entire mechanical beast away at a random location with the assistance of Kazuma's luck, landing it right atop Aldarp's mansion, a nearby lord residing in another town. Kazuma's luck definitely helped though, because this miraculously ended up resulting in 0 casualties. Unfortunately, this still got him in trouble. Not just some, actually, this was huge trouble. Very bad. Subversion of the state. He was jailed, interviewed.
Do you have any idea what the townspeople call you? Kazu Trash and Krapuma.
Hey, there's my name. Put on trial and spared, but under tight supervision by Sena. He was able to get out of this full-on execution right here because of Darkness revealing her family name, Lalatina Dustinus, and basically blackmail blackmailing the judge and bribing Lord Aldarp with her body. Something else that happened, though, was the state's seizure of all their personal belongings to pay off their far too deep debt. Then Chomsuke appeared and returned to Megumin. Yay! Which means Union's in town. Before that, Megumin's constant use of explosion caused the giant toads to wake up early this year, so their party had to deal with them yet again. But things were looking especially grim for them this time. Luckily, Union's in town! She saved them, totaling 12 giant toads killed. Once they returned home, Megumin and Kazuma ended up bathing together. That's not important. Tomorrow at Wiz's shop, Union and Megumin decided to have yet another one of their duels. Did I mention they have duels yet? Well, anyway, they have duels. And they write them down who has more wins. Megumin has most of them because she's an asshole. Through one of the Lich's items for sale, a magic orb that apparently helps you to make friends. After figuring out its actual use was to display in 4K the two's memories in a depressing few minutes, the two became hella embarrassed. Some days later, the Darknessless crew couldn't wait any longer and their debts weren't getting any smaller. So they decided to head out to a dungeon with a newly discovered passageway, so they could at least eat. Having to leave a useless Megumin above ground, the original duo descended into the labyrinth, soon discovering 1. A ton of lost spirits whom Aqua, very uncharacteristically goddess-like, freed from their shackles of regret and allowed them proper passing, and 2. A Lich whose sins were absolved by Aqua with a particularly strong magic circle. This will be important soon. In amounts of days later, and Kazuma was yet again scolding Aqua for wasting what little money they had left partying, and that's when Darkness finally returned. Turns out Lord Aldarp didn't have the guts to request anything sexual, but Darkness was instead attempting to resist an arranged marriage the entire time with the Lord's son. So they returned to Darkness's home to dissuade her father into this marriage. That plan did not last long. Shortly, Darkness challenged the Lord's son to a duel, but it didn't incite any strong emotions out of the Crusader. So she demanded Kazuma take over to show him how it's done, and he definitely succeeded, in Darkness's eyes at least. And defiled her in front of her father. Anyway, this was enough to convince her father, who is actually a really stand-up guy, to agree to let her continue adventuring with Kazuma. You know, saying those two sentences back to back really sound out of context and make no sense. Like, you know what? I'm keeping it that way. Oh, she also lied and gave her father false hope that she's pregnant with Kazuma's kid. Then Aqua's magic circle she made earlier bit her in the ass, with Sena bursting in, exclaiming there was an influx of monsters roaming around outside the tomb now, as if they've been forced out. And with this happening just after they left, who else to blame but them? They feigned ignorance with the prosecutor but decided to go anyway to appease her, with the intent on destroying Aqua's extra potent magic circle before anyone else found it. Returning to the dungeon, they discovered another one of the Demon King's generals, Vanir, who's rumored to be even stronger than the Devil King himself awaiting them. Through his monologue, we learn he's actually just like Wiz, with him only being a general in name, by also assisting to uphold the castle's magical barrier. Vanir possessed Darkness's body with great difficulty, and Kazuma did manage to erase the circle while those two were distracted by their bickering. Upon exiting the dungeon, they attempted a few ways to destroy Vanir's mask and save Darkness, but nothing worked. Well, almost nothing. Their last-ditch effort was their ace in the hole.
Explosion!
And that succeeded. Darkness managed to take on a full-power explosion from Megumin directly, which subsequently destroyed the mask. Also, since Kazuma directly assisted in the erasure of a Demon King general yet again, all charges of suspicion of conspiring with the Devil King were cleared. On top of that, the reward for doing this feat netted them a great bounty, finally relieving them of their debts, and even putting them up 40 million Eris. Things were looking up for Kazuma's crew. But they definitely needed to do something before moving on, and that was informing Wiz of what they'd done and apologizing for killing her comrade. So they opened the door, entered Wiz's shop, and were greeted by Vanir! Wait, what? Turns out the demon only exhausted one of their lives in the explosion. Who knows how many they actually have? But yeah, Wiz hired Vanir to work with her here. Or maybe Vanir had been here the entire time and they just never caught him on a shift? Anyway, Vanir II was able to escape his post as the commander of the army, which is something he'd actually been meaning to do for a long time. Also, since Vanir was all-knowing, he could actually tell where Kazuma was from and desired a business opportunity to manufacture items from Earth and sell them here. One such item was the kotatsu we later see Kazuma lazing underneath. With Megumin and Darkness bored out of their minds, they forced the goddess and Neat out of their hibernation to take on another quest. On the way to the guild hall, Kazuma picked up a katana he helped forge with one of his new skills, which Megumin had against Kazuma's will dubbed Chun Chun Maru. Anyway, their quest this time was to eliminate the princess and king runners, hopefully leading to the disbursement of the rest of the lizards. But this is Konosuba, and their plans did not go on so smoothly. In fact, it went possibly the worst it could have, with Kazuma falling off the tree he was sniping in and cracking his neck, marking Kazuma's third death. Well, I guess the worst scenario would be Aqua dying Wait, if Aqua died, does that mean she gets to go back to heaven? I don't know. Anyway. Eris greeted him once again, where Kazuma began developing a bit of a crush on Eris. Soon though, Aqua's baited temptation of them desecrating his body forced his hand, and he had Eris open a gateway back. Once returned to their abode, Vanir would visit Kazuma yet again for their business deal, where he would set the offer of 300 million Eris in exchange for intellectual property over the items from Kazuma's world, or 1 million Eris a month indefinitely. He let them think about it and left for now. Upon stumbling into this insane amount of promised money, the group decided to take a vacation to Arkenretia, home of the magical healing hot springs. En route, they defeated a herd of running Hawkites and zombies, which they themselves secretly brought upon the convoy by accident, but after that they would finally make it to the home of the Axis cult, basically where the vast majority of Aqua's absolutely insane followers hang out. Instead of just being a regular community, this is more like the whole population is part of a pyramid scheme, with their endless assault of registration documents and all. Oh hey look, it's the girl from Megumin's past. What's she doing here? After Aqua unintentionally purified the spring's healing water, the manager of the hot springs kicked her out and accused her of being the cause for diminishing the water of the quality. The quality of the water recently. Aqua, suspecting the water quality's downgrade had to be the work of the Devil King's army, announced to a large group what she was suspicious of and that she's the real Aqua. But, of course, they didn't believe her and went so far as to agreeing together that the woman in front of them was an imposter from the Devil King's army herself. So she was chased away. Later in the night, a mob appeared in front of their inn with stakes and torches, demanding Aqua and her party's death. Being chased away, the crew made their way up to the top of the upper layer of the hot springs to set things right, because even though they wanted to murder her, they were still her followers, and she didn't want them being poisoned. Past the gates, the true perpetrator was revealed, and turns out Aqua was right. The man standing in front of them was one of the Devil King's generals, Hans, the deadly poison slime. Since Wiz was with them, she was the first to recognize him, and after learning the real manager of the hot springs, a man who posed no real threat, a non-combatant, was eaten by Hans, Wiz bursted out in a rage, and the battle began. With some quick thinking from Kazuma, they were able to push back the Devil King's minion with no casualties. Well, after Aqua's revival of Kazuma, of course. I should definitely note, everyone 100% pulled their weight here, and I'd even give the MVP to Aqua this time.
KONOSUBA.
Another day, another girl barraging Kazu trash for being scum. Meanwhile, Union bursted in and declared the Crimson Demon Village was soon to be the victim of a full-on assault by the Devil King's army, as stated in a letter she received from her father. Megumin decided to stay as she had faith in her clan, so Union returned alone. Soon, the regret would corrupt Megumin though, so they shortly followed Union with the help of Wiz's teleport. After a quick but traumatizing encounter with some female orcs, Kazuma and the gang took a break at a small clearing in the nearby forest. Suddenly, the army could be seen approaching, but that's when they were saved by the Crimson Demon villagers. Not only were they saved though, but they were shown a war crime in the form of a light show. In a matter of seconds, the front line was eviscerated, causing the rest of the troops to fall back. Reconvening at Megumin's house, Kazuma fed the poor family with all the delicious gifts he'd bought earlier, and through a slip of the mouth revealed he'd be coming into a fortune of 300 million Eris soon. Suddenly, they began treating him with way more respect, and when the night fell, Yui locked Kazuma and Megumin in a room together. At first, it wasn't actually going too terribly, but then Kazuma expressed his unruly desires, creeping Megumin out, resulting in the girl running off to Union's house to sleep. While out shopping for clothes the next day, they'd see a frickin' rifle being used as a clothes drying pole in a tailor's backyard. More on that in a bit though. After a visit to their old school, the Devil King's army was launching another attack. This time, they were taking more of a secretive over-the-mountain approach. And who else but Darkness would be on the front lines to battle Sylvia, general of the Devil King's army, that being number 4 of 8. Or I guess 1 of 4 now, damn, which they'd encountered thus far. Because of the reveal that these 4 were the ones behind her comrades' deaths, along with the backup from the insanely powerful demons behind them, Sylvia opted to retreat yet again. Then night 2 with Kazuma and Megumin was upon us. At first, Kazuma pulled his regular creepiness, but that didn't last too long before the two had a genuine heart-to-heart. Kazuma, for the first time ever, admitted directly to one of his party members that he genuinely enjoys their company. And for as much as he berates them for being useless, they are actually quite helpful. The two promise to spend the rest of their days with each other and the rest of their party before heading to sleep, ending up cuddling, with Megumin even coming on to Kazuma. Just when things were about to heat up though, Sylvia's assault was reinitiated. Oh, come on! Outside, Kazuma was initially pissed, but soon accepted his new life as Sylvia's slave after being embraced by the Growth Chimera, and the two would retreat into the village's storage facility where they kept the Mage Killer, an ancient weapon which had been sealed away with the power to nullify magic. This would be Sylvia's secret weapon to assist her mission to eradicate the Crimson Demons. Meanwhile, Wiz was showing Vanir the same village because Wiz knows of a skilled craftsman he'd been looking for to create all the wacky inventions from Earth. Anyway, it was revealed here that the Japanese man behind the Mage Killer also created a countermeasure in case that weapon ever got into the wrong hands. Also, inscribed on a tablet in the village was writings from the exact same dude, and here it dawned on them that this guy was the Japanese man behind the mobile destroyer. On top of all that, it's revealed that not only did he create everything we've seen so far, but he was even behind the first bloodline of the Crimson Demons by modifying regular humans. This was done when he was demanded to create a weapon to defeat the Devil King by the country's king. While they were reading that scripture, the rest of the Crimson Demons' power was nullified by Sylvia, turning mostly the entire village useless, though that's exactly when Union came in to save them. Combining her efforts as well as the assistance of the rifle from earlier, aka the Mage Killer countermeasure, Sylvia was defeated! Almost. Though hit with a deadly weapon, Sylvia's will to live was far too great, and she broke free from the afterlife and emerged as an amorphous monster. Finally, with some more great quick thinking from Kazuma and help from Wiz and Vanir as backup, the group were able to enact Kazuma's plan. After receiving a ton of blessings from Aqua, Kazuma again displayed his appreciation for his party member, this time being Aqua, with him even acknowledging her as a goddess. I gotta say, I genuinely love the development we've got in this arc. Anyway, to put down Sylvia once and for all, Kazuma would enter the general's embrace after declaring his love for them, allowing their guard to be lowered, and for the greatest you've ever witnessed to be displayed in full force, obliterating Kazuma and Sylvia together. After Kazuma's revival, I've lost count at this point, maybe like 6? They returned to Axel, where the group could be seen having a nice picnic outside of town. On the cliffside, Megumin, as we'd seen earlier, had been seriously contemplating learning other magic so she could be more useful to the party. Of course, this would go against everything she stands for, but the missions were becoming increasingly more dangerous as they went on. So she decided to allow Kazuma to assign her next set of spells on her adventuring card, then asking her to let loose one last Megumin agreed, and to her surprise, it was even more powerful than before. Kazuma had simply increased the power of her explosion yet again, resulting in happiness-filled tears from the Archwizard. What else could be in store for our party in Season 3? Who knows, man? Whatever it is, I know it's gonna bang. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'll actually be reacting to Konosuba Season 3. If you are interested in that, check out my second channel, Kazu2, where I'll be posting those. Anyway, everyone, have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching yet again. I think I've said that like 3 times by now, but anyway, bye-bye. Hey followers, I've been making my YouTube videos for 3 years now. It's been a lot of fun, but I wonder why I haven't blown up yet. Am I doing something wrong? Should I start posting more YouTube shows?